Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to depart for Brunei and Singapore on Tuesday to take New Delhi's Act East policy and vision for the Indo-Pacific forward. US President Joe Biden says Israel's Netanyahu is not doing enough to secure a hostage deal. Israel's labor court orders an end to the strike called by trade unions, pressing for a truce. Pakistan's Peshawar reports a fifth Mpox case emerging as a possible epicenter for the deadly disease. Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi allows the first disbursement of $10 million to combat the outbreak. And India adds a 9th medal to its Paris Paralympics kitty as Nitesh Kumar wins the men's singles badminton gold. First up, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Brunei Darussalam, a Southeast Asian country, on a 2-day visit starting Tuesday. Munmun Bhattacharya reports from its capital, Bandar Seri Begawan, on what to expect from the visit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Brunei Darussalam, a tiny state situated on the northern coast of the island of Borneo along the South China Sea, starting Tuesday. This visit is going to be significant because it's going to be the first ever bilateral visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam. This visit also coincides with 40th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Brunei Darussalam. On day one of the visit, PM Modi will inaugurate the Indian Chancery building at Bandar Seri Begawan, the capital of Brunei Darussalam. After the inauguration, the Indian High Commission will function from the new Chancery building. On the same day, he will visit the Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, named after the father of the current monarch, Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah. On the next day, Prime Minister Modi will meet Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah and members of the royal family at the Royal Palace. Both sides will also hold delegation-level talks, engage on all existing areas of cooperation, and also explore avenues for cooperation in newer sectors. Both the leaders have met on a number of occasions. They first met on the sidelines of the 25th ASEAN Summit at Naypyidaw in November 2014, and then on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit in 2017 in Manila. In January 2018, they met in New Delhi on the occasion of the Silver Jubilee of ASEAN-India Dialogue Partnership. Sultan Haji was among the heads of state and governments who witnessed India's Republic Day parade. The relationship between India and Brunei has steadily evolved, with defense cooperation being a key component. The exchange of naval visits and the participation of Bruneian nationals in various capacity-building courses in India underscore the growing defense and educational ties between the two countries. Trade relationship is important, especially in the context of India's energy security, because every year India imports crude oil worth $500 to $600 million from Brunei Darussalam, which is rich in oil and gas reserves. Both sides also cooperate in space and health sectors and promote people-to-people exchanges. The presence of a vibrant Indian diaspora in Brunei, particularly in the oil and gas industries, construction and healthcare sectors, further strengthens the bilateral relationship. Ties between the two countries are important even from a regional perspective. Brunei Darussalam was the country coordinator for India in ASEAN for 3 years, from July 2012 to June 2015, and played an important role in bringing India closer to ASEAN. As India continues to implement its Act East policy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brunei Darussalam is expected to reinforce India's strategic footprint in the Southeast Asian region, fostering greater cooperation in key sectors and also paving the way for a more integrated and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Brunei Darussalam for DD India.
And India's Prime Minister will also visit Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Brunei. Prime Minister Modi will also meet members of the Indian community there in Brunei. Munmun Bhattacharya has this report as well from Brunei Darussalam.
After India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Brunei Darussalam's capital, Bandar Seri Begawan, on Tuesday, one of his key engagements would be at the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. He would pay respects at the mosque and also meet members of the Indian diaspora here. The Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque takes its name from its builder, the father of the present Sultan, and his predecessor, Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin. He was the 28th Sultan of Brunei. His vision of a grand mosque took 4 years to build. It was finally completed in 1958. The design was heavily influenced by Mughal architecture in India.
We have had very deep historical linkages with, as you would know in history, this island was known as the Borneo Island, and Indian sailors, traders, merchants, pilgrims, preachers, Buddhist pilgrims, they had been sailing these waters. And from the pre-modern, pre-medieval and pre-Islamic times, there have been very deep ties between India and Borneo Island, the residents of this island.
Only the finest materials were used in its construction: Shanghai granite and Italian marble, stained glass and crystal chandeliers from England, fine carpets from Saudi Arabia, and a dome covered in gold leaf.
We are very proud to welcoming our Honorable Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam. Everybody join, we get together, and we are welcoming our Honorable Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam.
It's one of the iconic mosques here in Brunei. So our Prime Minister coming here and visiting this place, it's like thoroughly we really honored visiting.
The mosque's 52-meter high minaret makes it the tallest building in central Bandar Seri Begawan. The Indian diaspora is excited to meet the Prime Minister at the mosque.
Bruneian Indians or Indian Bruneians, we are waiting for our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Here we go, Modi, Modi, Modi.
We can't wait. As you can hear, Modi, Modi chants have already started just before his landing, and we want to be doing it tomorrow.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi lives in us because he is the energy for not the country, for the whole world.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the mosque is being seen as significant to boost people-to-people ties between India and the Islamic Sultanate of Brunei. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had earlier visited mosques in various countries in Southeast Asia and West Asia. In those visits, he has taken the message of peace, piety, harmony and inclusiveness, all inherent to the faith of Islam, to the people and leadership of those countries. The Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque will soon be the latest addition to that list. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Bandar Seri Begawan for DD India.
And as Prime Minister Modi is all set to visit the city of Bandar Seri Begawan, let's take a look at what makes it so special. Munmun Bhattacharya has this report as well.
Capital and largest city of Brunei Darussalam is Bandar Seri Begawan. The city is a financial and administrative center and is known for a river port called Muara Port. Bandar Seri Begawan's landmarks include the gold-domed Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, which is among the largest mosques in Southeast Asia. Istana Nurul Iman, the 1,788-room royal palace, and the Hassan al-Bolkiah National Stadium. Alongside the modern city is an older settlement called Kampong Ayer or Water Village. Here, people live in houses raised on stilts along inlets of the river. A network of raised wooden walkways connects the houses. A water village probably existed in this region as early as the 600s. The modern city became the capital of Brunei in 1920. and until 1970 it was called Brunei Town. Bandar Seri Begawan was once predominantly an agricultural trade centre and a river port, but it suffered extensive damage during the Second World War, after which it was largely rebuilt and became the country's financial and administrative centre with a port at the mouth of River Muara. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmun Paracharya from Bandar Seri Begawan for DD India.
India's Ministry of External Affairs has released a video ahead of Indian Prime Minister Modi's visit to Brunei. It highlights a strong relationship that India has with Brunei. Take a look. Also, this is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's fifth visit to Singapore as well. The country has a sizable population of Indian origin people and it maintains close cultural and historic ties with India. The visit by Prime Minister Modi is being seen as a historic one, which is likely to strengthen the relations between the two strategic allies. DD India's Akshay Dongre has filed this report from Singapore on the shared heritage and cultural ties between the two nations and the expectations of the Indian diaspora in Singapore.
A hustling, bustling district of Singapore, where you will always find people of Indian descent, people of Indian origin, proud Indian people who share the tradition and heritage, and who are in fact cultural ambassadors of India that are spread out across the world. In fact, let's speak to some of the gentlemen who are sitting here. Prime Minister is coming here in 2 days. As far as the foreign policy of Prime Minister Modi is concerned, he has given significant significance to Singapore as far as India's diplomacy is concerned. So are you seeing any result of that diplomacy? Are you seeing any changes as far as the perception of India outside is concerned?
Yeah, I like his foreign policy, and especially his cabinet ministers like Jaishankar and Ajit Doval, and all of them is making good relationship with any country. So I see a good improvement after the government is formed.
Visit is also coinciding with the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Singapore too. So how do you feel about it as far as the policy is concerned? The policies that Prime Minister Modi has taken as far as India and diplomacy?
Yeah, I think he's been doing, he and his ministers have been doing a great job, and kudos on their latest election, and I hope they continue to do a good job and build good relationship across the world.
Be it temples, cafes, businesses, restaurants, you'll always find a lot of India as far as Singapore is concerned. With camera person SP Dubey, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Russia hits Ukraine's capital Kyiv with a heavy barrage of missiles and drones. And Olaf Scholz terms as bitter the defeat suffered at the hands of a resurgent German far-right in 2 provincial elections, its first victories after the Second World War.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and let's now tell a little bit more about the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi to two Southeast Asian nations, Brunei as well as Singapore. My colleague Munmun Bhattacharya is with me right now, joining us from Brunei's capital, Bandar Seri Begawan. I'm expecting Akshay Dongre as well to join us from Singapore. But Munmun, let's start with you. What's in store for Prime Minister Modi when he lands in Brunei as the first Indian Prime Minister to visit that part of the world tomorrow?
Well, absolutely. A lot is in store for Prime Minister Narendra Modi here because his 2 days here will be chock-a-block with engagements. He arrives on the 3rd of September evening here, and after that he is going to be received by the Indian community here because we expect a brief interaction between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Indian community members. After that, the Prime Minister will be headed to the Indian Chancery building. That's where the inauguration of the building will take place, and the Indian High Commission will be functioning from there. And after that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. This is the mosque that has been named after the current monarch, Sultan Haji Hassan al Bolkiah. So that's about the first day of the engagements. On the second day, we expect Prime Minister to have bilateral meeting with Sultan Haji. He is the monarch, like I said, of this monarchy, Brunei Darussalam, and there will also be an audience with the members of the royal family. After that, there will be delegation level talks between the two leaders, and of course, there will be a banquet lunch that will be hosted by the monarch of Brunei Darussalam for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So a lot really in store, and this is going to be the first ever bilateral visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam. In 2013, the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had gone to Brunei Darussalam, but that was for multilateral summits, that is for the India-ASEAN summit as well as the East Asia summit.
All right, just stay with me, Munmun, because Akshay is also with us from Singapore. Now, Akshay, good evening. The PM will be traveling from Brunei to Singapore. India already has a fairly meaty relations with this key Southeast Asian nation in multiple spheres ranging from trade and investment to science and technology. Now, what further progress could we expect?
Well, there are a lot of arenas as far as the bilateral relations between India and Singapore are concerned that can be improved. In fact, for example, there is advanced manufacturing, where India is especially focused on semiconductor technology, manufacturing sector, where India can learn a lot from Singapore. And these are certain arenas where the Prime Minister's focus will be, especially the semiconductor, given the fact that the latest technology and the kind of advancement that we are seeing around the world, Singapore remains one of the key hubs as far as semiconductor manufacturing is concerned. Now, giving some information about the Indo-Singapore relations to our viewers, this is going to be the fifth visit by the Prime Minister, by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Singapore. In fact, the four visits that took place were during his first tenure as a Prime Minister, and now the fifth visit is coming in his third tenure. In fact, it is a historic visit in several senses because Singapore also is seeing the new Prime Minister's government right now. Lawrence Wong took over in the mid of May. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shortly after that also took over as his third tenure, and this is going to be especially important given the fact that India is trying to move ahead as far as the semiconductor technology is concerned. The trade with Singapore is quite high. In fact, Singapore is the sixth largest trading partner for India. In fact, the largest FDI inflow into India in the last calendar year was from Singapore and not from any other country in the world. And despite this size, Singapore has been one of the closest allies as far as India's Act East policy is concerned and India's relations with the ASEAN nations are concerned. So there are fairly close relations between India and Singapore, but India is also looking at even closer relations given the fact that China has been eyeing the nations like Singapore and other ASEAN countries as far as in trying to increase its own influence in the region. And India has been trying to, in fact, bolster its own time-tested friendship with these countries as well in the region. Back to you, Gautam.
All right, Akshay. Thank you for joining us, Akshay. Let me bring Munmun back as well. Now, Munmun, connecting with the Indian diaspora has always been an intrinsic part of Prime Minister Modi's diplomatic visits. Now, how will that be taken forward during this particular visit to Brunei?
To tell you a little about the Indian diaspora that is present here, Gautam, there are around 15,000 members of the Indian community here in a population of less than 5 lakh, and more than 50% of the Indian expatriates here are unskilled workers or semi-skilled workers. Many of them are working in the oil and gas industries, many in the textile sector, many in the retail sector, many in the construction sector. But increasingly, the number of Indian professionals is on the rise, such as doctors, teachers, engineers, those in the health sector, to name a few. And we are seeing that the Indian community members are extremely excited to meet the Prime Minister. Now, there are going to be at least 3 occasions on day 1 of Prime Minister's visit in which the Indian community members will get to see a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and maybe have some informal interactions with him as well. That is, after his arrival, just immediately a few hours after his arrival, he's expected to have an informal interaction with members of the Indian diaspora. Besides that, when he goes to inaugurate the new Chancery building, there also he's expected to have some interactions with the members of the Indian diaspora, or at least meet and greet them. And after that, even at the mosque that he'll be visiting later, members of the Indian diaspora would be present there to welcome the Prime Minister. And I spoke to a few of them, and they are very enthusiastic about the Prime Minister's visit. Many of them have not met the Prime Minister ever, and they are looking forward to this visit. One of them said that one of the persons that he had met here had told him that you are just 20,000 in number here, and still your Prime Minister is coming all the way to meet you all. So he felt a very strong sense of connect with the country, and they celebrate a lot of Indian festivals here like Diwali, Oman, Pongal, etc. And again, they are feeling very close to home just ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival in Brunei Darussalam.
Right. So, a historic visit it will definitely prove to be, with this aspect joining in with the others as well. A lot of progress expected, particularly on the investments front, or the fact that India needs to secure its energy needs, and countries like Brunei Darussalam can be really helpful there as well. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Munmun Bhattacharya as well as Akshay Dhongre. Now, Israel is currently engulfed in unprecedented protests following the recovery of 6 hostages' bodies from a Gaza tunnel. Demonstrators, outraged by the failure of both Israel and Hamas to secure a ceasefire, have taken to the streets, calling for immediate action to release the remaining captives. The atmosphere is charged, and an Israeli court has ordered to end the strike by Israel's largest labor union, which has further compounded the situation. Details in this report.
Amid massive protests in Tel Aviv calling for ceasefire with Hamas for safe return of Israeli hostages, US President Joe Biden on Monday said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not done enough to secure the agreement.
What makes you think that this deal will be successful in a way that the other deals were not?
Hope springs eternal.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Israel has engulfed in unprecedented protest after the remains of 6 hostages were recovered from a tunnel in Gaza. This comes after Israel and Hamas failed to secure a ceasefire deal. Demonstrators have called upon the Israeli government to reach a ceasefire agreement with Hamas to free the remaining captives. Protesters have accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of failing to save the hostages.
The Israeli government's decision to delay, to put more terms, unfortunately, that was the end for Carmel.
Israeli police detained several protesters as they tried to block a highway near Tel Aviv to call for a deal to release the hostages. The demonstration was organized in support of a strike called by Israel's largest labor union to pressure the government into reaching a Gaza deal to free the hostages. The Israeli economy has come to a standstill due to a one-day general strike called by a major trade union to put pressure on the government to reach a deal with Hamas. Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport also halted flights amid the strike. Meanwhile, an Israeli labor court on Monday ordered to end the strike called by the country's largest union to support a deal.
I call on the people of Israel to take to the street, leave the workplace, I call on all economic organizations in the state of Israel, everyone to join the strike.
Meanwhile, protests also took place at New York's Central Park to honor 6 Israeli hostages killed in Gaza and demand the return of those still captive. Participants held photos of the hostages and banners reading "Bring our children home." Several US Democratic lawmakers also renewed calls for an Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, while Republicans criticized the government for not giving stronger support to Israel. Democrats say a ceasefire deal must be reached immediately to allow all remaining hostages to be released, while Republicans have urged President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to finish the job against Hamas. Israel's assault on Gaza began after Hamas and other militants killed about 1,200 people and took about 250 hostages in attacks on Israel on October 7 last year. Thousands of Palestinians have been killed in retaliatory strikes and special operation to secure hostages from Gaza. The crisis has created an unprecedented situation where Palestinians are forced to live in dire conditions with inadequate shelter and a hunger crisis. Sayyid Muhammad Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
Loud explosions rocked Ukraine's capital Kyiv early on Monday as Russia launched a barrage of missiles, sparking fires and damaging homes and infrastructure. Residents across the city were woken up by a quick succession of bangs and the sound of air defense missiles blasting off skywards to intercept targets. The Air Force said it had destroyed 22 out of 35 missiles and 20 out of 23 attack drones. They listed several types of cruise and ballistic missiles used by Russia as well. Neighboring NATO member Poland activated its aircraft to keep its airspace safe during the attacks. And Ukraine also launched an attack on the Russian border city of Belgorod. One person was wounded and several homes were damaged after Ukrainian shelling in Belgorod. Russia's air defense units destroyed one Ukraine-launched drone overnight. That's what the Defense Ministry said on the messaging app Telegram. Ukraine has been mounting an attack on Belgorod in a bid to target key Russian infrastructure. Germany's far-right party is set to win a state election for the first time post the Second World War in the country's east and looked set to finish very close second in another. Exit polls showed that the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD, won 32.8% of the vote in Thuringia, well ahead of the centre-right Christian Democratic Union, the main national opposition party, with 23.6% in Sunday's regional elections. The results look punishing for Social Democrat Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition ahead of national elections next year. According to exit polls, AfD made substantial gains in Thuringia and smaller ones in Saxony compared with the last state elections in 2019. Though experts say that the far-right party will be excluded from power by cooperation between rival parties. AfD candidate Björn Höcke said that the polls clearly show that people of Germany want change for better. And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has termed the results of the two regional elections that saw big wins for the far-right AfD and losses for his coalition as bitter. He's urged mainstream parties to form governments without right-wing extremists, but the shift in two East German provinces is tectonic, as it marks a return to pole position for the far-right in German politics after the Second World War and just about a year ahead of the federal elections. DW's Thomas Barrow reports from Berlin.
Germany began this week with a development that some have called historic, others problematic. For the first time since World War II, a far-right party won a regional election. The Alternative for Germany party, or AfD, finished in first place in the eastern state of Thuringia, where the party's regional branch is described by intelligence services as right-wing extremist. In another German state, in Saxony, the AfD did not finish first, but it still won 30% of the vote, making the party a very influential political force in eastern Germany. The AfD managed to tap into citizens' discontent on highly controversial issues such as irregular migration or military support for Ukraine. But the AfD's victory does not mean that it will end up governing, as the other parties do not want to form coalitions with the far-right party. Moreover, this result is likely to deepen the crisis on the other side of the political spectrum, especially for Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government. His Social Democratic Party, as well as its partners at the federal level, the Greens and the Liberals, had an election day to forget. Voters sent a clear, a strong message that they do not support Scholz's policies. It's an important rejection in the run-up to 2025, when the whole country will go to the polls in federal elections that will determine the new federal government.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. We'll be speaking about the importance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brunei and Singapore with our expert guest Gurjeet Singh, former Indian ambassador to ASEAN. And the Indian government approves a digital agriculture mission worth 2,817 crore Indian rupees. I'm Gautam Roy. And let's now take you back to our top story where Prime Minister Modi is heading off first to Brunei and then to Singapore starting tomorrow, which is on Tuesday. This is a key visit of Prime Minister Modi to take India's Act East policy forward and its vision for the Indo-Pacific as well. The 10th year of, in fact, the Act East policy, 10 years being completed, in fact. Let's talk about it with Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, who's been India's envoy to ASEAN as well. Good evening to you, Ambassador. What do you make of this trip? How key is it in the first place when an Indian Prime Minister for the first time is headed to Brunei Darussalam?
Good evening, Mr. Rao. So, it is a very historic time. 40 years of diplomatic relations between India and Brunei. And the celebration is nothing less than the visit of Prime Minister Modi. So I think this is very historic because the relationship with Brunei is not one of the most active within ASEAN. We have had the Sultan of Brunei make 2 bilateral visits to India in 1992 when embassies were opened and in 2008. And subsequently, he has come twice for the 20th anniversary celebrations of India and ASEAN, and then the 25th anniversary, when he was also among the chief guests at the Republic Day. From the Indian side, the highest bilateral visit we have had is of the Vice President in 2016. And we had Prime Minister Manmohan Singh visit Brunei, but that was not bilateral. That was for East Asia Summit. So what Prime Minister Modi is doing is filling in a major diplomatic gap and providing Brunei the engagement with India to make it flower even further. So I think that makes it extremely important. Brunei is a very important oil supplier. Though our trade with them is small, but they can be a very good partner for an expanded defense partner.
How critical is that aspect really in terms of India's strategic interest? Brunei is seen as a distant country and not many people in India know much about it apart from the fact that it is a monarchy and the fact that it produces oil and gas. What more can you tell us about the kind of relations that India has with Brunei and the potential that it holds as well for further advancement?
So Brunei was a British colony and only got its independence in 1984. You know, Brunei is situated on the island of Borneo 80% of which has 5 provinces of Indonesia, 20% of which has 2 provinces of Malaysia, and stuck inside them is this small country of Sultanate of Brunei. So it is small, but it is much richer compared to its neighbors because of its oil wealth and the way that the Sultan's regime has managed it. So they have basically been a non-controversial country. They joined ASEAN as soon as they became independent and have been a part of all ASEAN-centric bodies, including the RCEP on trade, the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting. They were the chair of ASEAN in 2023, I think. No, 2021. And before that in 2013. So they are not going to come into a position of influence in ASEAN for another 8 years. But they are one of the most gentle and calm countries in ASEAN. They have a great respect for Indian professionals. And I think your correspondent was telling us about the number of Indian doctors, chartered accountants, IT professionals who are there. You know, I personally know that when I was in Brunei in 2013 and I had an eye issue, I was immediately seen by highly specialized eye specialists, and they were all Indian. Right. So it was quite an eye-opener for me. So I think what we are likely to see is a growth in our defense partnership, because on the trade side, there is just that much that Brunei can buy. And their oil exports are also limited.
Okay, and Singapore, many Indians, far more than Brunei, know about Singapore because of its prominence as far as world's business affairs are concerned. But again, the strategic aspect is very little known in terms of how India is looking to extend the strategic partnership to unprecedented levels with Singapore as well, be they in critical areas of technology and investment, apart from the fact that, of course, there's a security aspect to it as well. In this entire context, if you take Brunei and Singapore together, the entire Indo-Pacific region, where China is a major challenge to all these countries.
So if you take the 3 pillars on which the ASEAN community stands, the economic pillar is the most important with Singapore. Singapore is the largest trading partner of India in ASEAN. I think about last year about $38 billion out of a total of $120 billion. It is the largest investor from ASEAN. 95% of ASEAN investment is routed through Singapore to India. So it's a very good channel for us. From India too, a lot of investment goes through the Singapore route. And they are the headquarters of over 200 Indian companies. Now, given this economic relationship, new developments like renewable energy, digital economy, skill development, sustainability, all this is something that our discussions with Singapore lead on. Now, I'd like to come back to this, but I'd like to say that the socio-cultural aspect is the second most important aspect with Singapore, because a large number of Indians, professionals live there, and there's also a large amount of PIOs, people of Indian origin, including their current president. So they have a good relationship with India in these terms. Finally, you asked me about the strategic element. Now, for long, India and Singapore have had a close defense relationship. A lot of their military training is held in India. We have perhaps the oldest exercise with an ASEAN country, the SIMBEX, is with Singapore. So that is a very vibrant relationship as well, though it does not translate into the ASEAN level, whereas the socio-cultural and economic aspects do. Now, if today you want to talk about China, which you mentioned, I think we should not be talking about China. Because the moment you talk about China, the ASEAN countries play turtle. They pull their head in and cover themselves. They have a very strong economic partnership with ASEAN and do not want to discuss strategic challenges. Brunei is one of the 4 countries which is actually suffering because of the Chinese 9-dash line. But you never hear them complain, never. They learn to live with it and learn to quietly say, okay, let's not make trouble. So I don't think India needs to look at China to determine its engagement with ASEAN countries. We need to find our own tracks. And I think with Singapore, we are doing it very well. You know, just last week, we had 4 Indian ministers, Finance Minister, External Affairs Minister, Trade and Industry Minister, and IT and Railways Minister, who met their counterparts, but they also met the Singapore Minister for Law and Home Affairs. And this 4x4, it does not have the Defense Minister, which 2x2 have. It's a 4x4, is putting so much energy into the Singapore-India relationship, bringing in new areas, and they've added 2 more now. I think advanced manufacturing and connectivity. So I think India and Singapore are moving rapidly ahead, not looking at China over their shoulder, but realizing that there's much we can do together. Now, if that can become infectious to the other ASEAN countries, it will be great. Now, recently we had, this year itself, the Prime Minister of Vietnam in India, and then we had the Prime Minister of Malaysia in India this month. So I think many of them are now actually looking to balance China without saying so. Saying so causes them embarrassment. Developing a relationship with India without talking about China, the South China Sea and all that, gives them comfort. So I think we should give them that comfort and expand our relationship. And that is what I think PM Modi is being assiduously doing. And later this year in October, he will be in Laos for the ASEAN +1 and East Asia summits. So I think that will really complete the cycle for this year.
All right. Well, let's hope that the relations are taken forward with not just these 2 nations and with ASEAN as well, as you mentioned in October, because there's one particular aspect that India and ASEAN have been trying to rework as well, which is the FTA. And let's hope there's progress on that front too. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Now, the Indian government has approved a digital agriculture mission worth 2,817 crore Indian rupees. It's also approved an outlay of 2,291 crore rupees for strengthening agricultural education, management and social sciences.
Education और मैनेजमेंट और सोशल साइंसेज जो रिलेटेड है, इनको कैसे स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए, और 5 बड़े इसमें पिलर्स हैं. पहला है कि ये सारा का सारा काम इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ एग्रीकल्चरल रिसर्च के गाइडेंस में ओवरऑल देश भर में होगा, जिसमें स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स भी कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी, एग्रीकल्चरल यूनिवर्सिटीज़ भी कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी, और सारा फोकस रहेगा कि न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के हिसाब से और आज की जो लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजीज़ हैं उसके आधार पे कैसे एजुकेशन को, एग्रीकल्चरल एजुकेशन को स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए और किसानों के पास कैसे ये सब नॉलेज पहुँचे. ओवरऑल इंदौर, भोपाल और उत्तर प्रदेश के झांसी, आगरा, कानपुर, लखनऊ, वाराणसी और उसके और भी ऊपर जो सीमांचल एरिया है हमारे, जो उत्तर प्रदेश के नेपाल के बॉर्डर के साथ जुड़ते हुए एरियाज़ हैं, उन सब को सीधा एक कनेक्टिविटी के लिए पूरा एक एक्सेस मिलेगा, जिसमें इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट हो पाएगा, लोगों को आने जाने को सुविधा मिलेगी, और ख़ासकर जो मुंबई भारत का जो फाइनेंशियल कैपिटल है, इसको मुंबई को एक्सेस इस पूरे एरिया के लिए अच्छी मिलेगी.
And the Union Cabinet also approved a 309-kilometer long new project providing the shortest rail connectivity between the 2 major commercial hubs of Mumbai and Indore that will be completed by 2028-29.
ओवरऑल इंदौर, भोपाल और उत्तर प्रदेश के झांसी, आगरा, कानपुर, लखनऊ, वाराणसी और उसके और भी ऊपर जो सीमांचल एरिया है हमारे, जो उत्तर प्रदेश के नेपाल के बॉर्डर के साथ जुड़ते हुए एरियाज हैं, उन सब को सीधा एक कनेक्टिविटी के लिए पूरा एक एक्सेस मिलेगा, जिसमें इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट हो पाएगा, लोगों को आने जाने को सुविधा मिलेगी। और खासकर जो मुंबई भारत का जो फाइनेंशियल कैपिटल है, इसको मुंबई को एक्सेस इस पूरे एरिया के लिए अच्छी मिलेगी।
And India's Prime Minister Modi hailed the decision, saying, and I quote, "Today's cabinet decision will improve connectivity between Mumbai and Indore. In addition to boosting commerce, it will also provide employment opportunities to several people." And another major decision has been taken with the approval of one more semiconductor unit of Kane Semicon Private Limited under India Semiconductor Mission, which will be set up in Gujarat.
इस प्लांट में 6.3 मिलियन पर डे चिप्स पर डे, यानी 63 लाख चिप्स पर डे की प्लांट की कैपेसिटी होगी। 46 एकर्स में प्लांट बनेगा। करीब करीब इसका जितना प्रोडक्शन होगा, वो प्रोडक्शन ऑलरेडी किन इंडस्ट्रीज में जाएगा वो बुक हो चुका है, और अच्छा इसका टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी। इसमें पावर से रिलेटेड चिप्स होती है, जो ट्रेन सेट्स में लगती है, आपके ऑटोमोबाइल्स में लगती है, और घर में जो अप्लायंसेस होते हैं उसमें लगती है। वो सारी चिप्स भी इस वाले प्लांट में बनेगी।
And this PM Modi said on X again, yet another boost to India's efforts towards becoming a hub of semiconductors. The cabinet approves one more semiconductor unit under the India Semiconductor Mission to be set up in Sanand. This will cater to a wide range of sectors and also give employment to several youth. Now, exiled Tibetans in India's northern hill town of Dharamshala marked their 64th Tibetan Democracy Day on Monday. It commemorates the establishment of a democratic system by their spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. Exiled Tibetan ministers, parliamentarians, monks and others took part in the celebrations with a lot of pomp and gaiety. And these celebrations have been going on for the last 64 odd years. In 1960 is when Tibet's government in exile was put in place for the first time. Since then, there have been regular elections, and this, of course, was preceded by how the Tibetans had to leave after a failed revolt against China's occupation of Tibet in 1959. President of India, Draupadi Murmu, held a courtesy meeting with former President of India, Pratibha Devi Singh Patil, at her residence, Raigad Bungalow in Pune. Present at the meeting were Patil's family members. President Murmu, who is on a 3-day visit to Maharashtra, will be attending the 21st convocation as chief guest at Symbiosis International on Tuesday in Pune, before proceeding to Mumbai, Latur and Nanded for further engagements. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Extreme weather events continue to disrupt lives globally, from Asia to Australia. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Pakistan's Peshawar appears to be turning into an epicenter for Mpox cases after reporting a 5th case of monkeypox. This trend is alarming. Meanwhile, the United Nations Children's Fund has launched an emergency tender to procure Mpox vaccines for crisis-affected countries.
With rising concerns about the new strain of the monkeypox virus, Peshawar in Pakistan is becoming the epicenter of the outbreak. The neighboring country reported its fifth monkeypox case on Sunday after a 47-year-old man tested positive, reportedly at the Bacha Khan International Airport. He had recently returned from the Gulf region. The latest Mpox case raised concerns about the virus's spread from travelers arriving from West Asia. There are visuals of a facility where 900 symptomatic patients have been admitted over the past 3 months. Health workers are grappling with severe drug shortages and lack of space to accommodate the influx.
We have many challenges. The first challenge concerns the supply of medicine because we run out of medicine every day because the stocks given to us by partners often run out without being able to renew. We have to wait for more medicine to arrive, and so we always experience shortages, medicine shortages, and that's a big challenge we have in managing this disease.
The patients are still waiting for medicines.
Since I got these skin rashes, I was told care here is free. But when I arrived, I realized there is no medicine. Someone can die here because they receive no treatment.
Congo's president, Felix Tshisekedi, has allowed a first $10 million disbursement to combat the outbreak. According to Congo's health ministry, there were 19,710 suspected cases of Mpox reported since the start of the year in Congo by August 31st. Of those, 5,041 were confirmed and 655 were fatal. Meanwhile, Nigeria will begin vaccinations for Mpox from October 8th after regulatory approvals are concluded. Nigeria received the first batch of 10,000 doses of the Mpox vaccine from the US Agency for International Development on Tuesday. The country has confirmed 40 Mpox cases with no fatalities yet. The United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, has issued an emergency tender to secure Mpox vaccines for crisis-hit countries in collaboration with the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, Africa CDC, and the World Health Organization. The UNICEF stated that depending on the production capacity of manufacturers, agreements for up to 12 million doses through 2025 can be made. Bureau Report, DD India.
As extreme weather events continue to disrupt lives globally, countries are grappling with relentless rain, severe flooding and intense heat waves. From Asia to Australia, the impact of climate change is evident. Here's a detailed look at the current weather disruptions affecting various parts of the world.
There seems to be no relief for people as several countries continue to battle severe weather disruptions. In India, heavy rainfall has wreaked havoc across the states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, leading to severe flooding, loss of life, and widespread disruption. Both states have been struggling with relentless downpours over the past few days, causing rivers to swell and inundate vast areas, including major cities like Hyderabad and Vijayawada.
The whole locality is inundated and everybody is stranded. There is no electricity, no drinking water, milk or other basic groceries available. People are stranded with very less boats to rescue them.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with the chief ministers of both southern Indian states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana to assess the situation in the wake of the heavy rains and floods. The Prime Minister assured of all possible assistance from the centre to help overcome this challenge. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, heavy rains flooded streets in the parts of the country as tropical storm Yagi hit on Monday. The storm has prompted the suspension of government work and classes. Yagi brought winds of up to 85 kilometers per hour, with gusts reaching 105 kilometers per hour as it continued to move northwestward in the northern island of Luzon.
The flood water reached half the height of the houses. In other areas, it reached the rooftops. Since around 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., the water kept rising, but now it has started to recede as the rain has weakened.
In Australia, a woman died and more than 120,000 people were left without power after high winds and heavy rain hit southern Australia. Victoria State Emergency Services received over 2,800 callouts overnight, mostly for fallen trees and building damage. Weather warnings remain in place for much of the state's southeast coast as winds of almost 150 kilometers per hour lashed the area overnight.
Because as we see, Victoria is continuing to experience severe weather. We have seen that strong storm front go through our state, and conditions, whilst they're expected to gradually ease over the course of today.
As several countries endure flash floods and heavy rainfalls, swaths of China and Japan registered their hottest summers this year. The Chinese Weather Service reported that average air temperatures last month in 8 provinces, regions and cities ranked the hottest for the same period since records began. Japan reported that its long-term average temperature between June and August was 1.76 degrees Celsius above the standard value. The ongoing severe weather events highlight the urgent need for global cooperation and proactive measures to combat climate change. The world must come together to address these challenges and mitigate the impacts on vulnerable populations. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now for some sporting updates, first from the Paris Paralympics. Now, India para-shuttler Nitesh Kumar's gold medal match was at the Paralympics. Nitesh won the first game, 21-14, against Great Britain's Daniel Bethel in the SL3 category para-badminton final and was leading in the second. Earlier, Nitesh Kumar stormed into the final of the men's singles SL3 category as he defeated Fujihara Daisuke of Japan 21-16, 21-12 in 48 minutes in the semi-final on Sunday. And India's Prime Minister Modi congratulated Indian shuttler Nitesh Kumar for clinching gold in the para-badminton SL3 category at the Paris Paralympics. In a post on X, the PM said, and I quote, "A tremendous achievement by Nitesh Kumar in the para-badminton men's singles SL3 as he wins gold. He is known for his incredible skills and perseverance. May he keep motivating upcoming athletes. Cheer for Bharat," unquote. India's Yogesh Kathunia also won silver medal in men's discus throw F56 at the Paris Paralympics. Yogesh threw 42.22 meters that earned him a silver medal. Earlier at Tokyo Paralympics as well, Kathunia won a silver. So this is Kathunia's second consecutive silver at the Paralympics. And with this, India has added an 8th medal. Of course, Nitesh's became the 9th in the overall tally. And Prime Minister Modi has also congratulated Yogesh for winning silver at the Paralympics. Taking to X again, the PM said, and I quote, "Congrats to Yogesh Kathunia for making India proud by winning the silver medal in the men's discus throw F56 at the Paralympics 2024. His is an incredible journey of determination, hard work and resilience. Best wishes for his upcoming endeavours. Hashtag cheer for Bharat again there," unquote. And that's all in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both iOS and Android platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now and download the app. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.